of the decline of local news and its impact on democracy. First, some housekeeping rules. This program is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel for later viewing. If you do not want to be recorded, you can turn off your video or you can leave and watch the program later. Second, please keep your microphone turned off until called on. There will be a question and answer session later where you may unmute. You can also put questions in the chat. The moderator for this event is Delores Irwin. Delores is the past president of the Kittitas County League and the current co-chair of the League of Women Voters Study Committee, which did the research and put together this report. Also joining us today are Brier Dudley of the Seattle Times and Mike Gallagher, formerly of the Ellensburg Daily Record newspaper, as well as other members of the League's study committee. Over to you, Delores.
Thanks, Charlie. The members of the committee come from leagues across the state. Some were former reporters or editors. Some taught journalism at the college level. Some are academics who specialized in medical or other types of research, and some were simply avid newspaper readers. Our study examines the impacts on a community when it loses its local news outlet, usually a newspaper. Those we counted in this category fit this description: one that provides comprehensive and regular reporting of a community's people, activities, government agencies, and schools. So not the radio station that only reports weather, crime, sports, and traffic. This 3-minute video sums up the basic concepts of our study.
News is coming toward you all day from every direction. You know about the latest gun violence, or if the Queen of England is having a party. But are you really informed about your own community? Do you know about your city council, or how local restaurants are doing, or where to get a COVID test? The truth is, local news is in crisis. More than 1/4 of the country's newspapers have disappeared. The latest research shows that with the average of 2 newspapers closing each week, we're on target to lose 1/3 of our nation's newspapers by 2025. The newspaper losses have left the residents of 1,800 communities with no local news outlet. This is not just a journalism problem. It's a democracy problem. The question is, should the League of Women Voters of Washington be concerned? Our local news committee, made up of League members from throughout the state, spent the last year examining this crisis. We interviewed more than 45 stakeholders, from publishers to academics, legislators to nonprofit editors. We sought to learn as much as possible about the depth of the crisis and possible remedies. We learned about the impact of news deserts and ghost newspapers. And, not surprising, when there are no local newspapers, voter participation and civic engagement decline. And governments may pay higher interest on municipal loans because there are no watchdogs to follow the money. Some of you may think legislation could be the answer. A bill was introduced in Olympia this session. This bill was not a panacea, but it did offer some relief to local news outlets. But it never made it out of committee.
If we want to try to help our local papers, do we also want to be, adding a tax on top of the other challenges they're facing? But I will acknowledge that people on both the left end of the spectrum and the right end of the spectrum tell me they think this idea stinks. And so I'm going into this conversation with a very open mind. And
some of us are not laughing now. We're concerned. Local journalism is a public good, one that the founders recognized as essential to sustaining our republic. We encourage you to review our report, The Decline of Local News and Its Impact on Democracy, and participate in discussions that we hope will lead to the League developing a position on local news. We would also like to get on your local League schedule so we can share highlights of our study with you. As a League member, you have already declared your support for empowering voters and defending democracy. By participating in a review of this study, you can demonstrate your support for that mission because it's not a journalism problem. It's a democracy problem.
Okay, what we emphasize is that the content that is lost when a newspaper goes out of business affects 4 areas. Politics, where with lower voter turnout and fewer candidates for office, and how people become more partisan when they only read national news. Government costs tend to be higher without news watchdogs. In community life, fewer people attend community events and join local organizations. And in public health, where there's less knowledge when less publicity about public health issues. Now, there are a lot of fascinating topics about media that deserve discussion, but we're limiting those topics today, and we ask that you confine your questions to local news. The reason for the study is to reach consensus with leagues across the state on whether to establish a policy position that local news is necessary in a democracy and should be supported. If consensus happens, the league can advocate for various solutions. Our committee has given a number of these presentations to local leagues across the state in which we explain the study findings in detail. If you'd like to see that kind of presentation, we're going to have one this coming Saturday, January 21st, and we'll be glad to give you the Zoom link to that one. But in this presentation, we're going to spend a little more time talking about what a local journalist does and also about potential solutions to this crisis. Our first speaker, Michael Gallagher, is former managing editor of the Ellensburg Daily Record, is an award-winning writer and has more than 35 years of experience in newspapers. He also worked for the Northern Kittitas County Tribune for 6 years. A second speaker is Brier Dudley, who is one of the technical reviewers for our study and is the editor of the Seattle Times Save the Free Press initiative. He has been at the Times since 1998, previously covered technology and was a member of the newspaper's editorial board. I'd like to give a plug for Brier's weekly column. It is not behind a paywall, so go to the Seattle Times and read it. Also attending today are several committee members who will be available to answer questions. Let me just say, Deanne Finken from Clark County is here. Actually, I can't see everyone who's here, so tell me if I'm missing someone. Linda Hughes from Bellingham Whatcom, Carol Reichard from Tacoma Pierce, Lauren Snyder from Seattle King, Lynn Whitley, Woodby Island League, Sharon Wilhelm, Tacoma Pierce, and Sally Hale. All right, so on to our first speaker, Mike Gallagher.
Hello, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the league, all you guys do, locally and statewide. Yeah, I was managing editor of Daily Record until probably Christmas. I've been managing editor for about the last 7 years and with the paper for 25 plus. But so anyways, I'm probably the least likely person to have spent my career in journalism. I was a very late arriver to the field. I wasn't a kid who did like high school newspaper. I didn't even declare my major until halfway through my junior year at the University of Washington. And probably the only reason I ended up doing newspapers are actually getting so I could do it. I got lucky. At UW, they had a program called News Bureau. I don't know if they still have it, but right before I was supposed to start it, the guy who was doing it quit. The professor, he just gave 2 weeks notice and left town, which you don't really do at a university because they require like a year of planning. But anyway, so they weren't going to do News Bureau. But it was my only thing I was going to do. I was doing it for my full load, and there's no way I could not do that class. It's my winter quarter of my senior year. And so I forced them to do News Bureau, which meant I was the only person in News Bureau. And I worked pretty much one-on-one with a professor named Roger Simpson, who's been there forever. And so I got this like one-on-one development with one of the leading communication professors at UW. And I wrote for like weeklies in Seattle. It's like, I did a lot for the Capitol Hill paper and Queen Anne. So I had this like intensive experience when I had no newspaper writing experience at all until I did that. I didn't know how to write a newspaper article. It was just like, I really needed that kind of, and I also got lucky because Frank Garrett, who is the publisher of the Port Townsend Leader, which is probably one of the best weeklies in the state at that point in time, spoke at a class at UW, And he really did not like the UW at the time, because UW had gone completely away from practical experience. It was almost all theoretical, the entire program. You didn't even need to have an internship to graduate. So he's like trashing the UW during the speech at the UW. But I liked him for some reason. So I contacted him and I talked him into giving me an internship in spring quarter, which he never did. And with the UW person the UW program, which he didn't really care for. So somehow I got an internship there. So I had these two back-to-back experiences that really gave me kind of an intense kind of newspaper boot camp type thing, because I had no experience previous to that as a creative writer. I was basically an English major looking for somehow to make a living writing. So I got lucky, got a lot of writing experience in like 2 quarters worth at the UW.